Welcome to the Hollow Chord Podcast.
Cocksuckers never have loners, though. That's the problem.
That's a fact. Okay, that's a fact. And the funny thing, a funny story about that is that we actually had somebody take one of our learners because one of the cars needed like an engine or some shit, and the dude fucking drove it from here to fucking Seattle.
That's amazing.
And we were like, what? And the guy's bitching about his car, and I get the guy's predicament. Like, he's like, where's the engine? I want my car, and everything's fucking backordered. Mm-hmm. So he drives it, and he flies back, leaves the car in fucking Seattle, right? Whoa. Yeah. He's like, and his car is done. He's like, I want my car right now. And they're like, where's the learner? He's like, that thing's in fucking Seattle, Washington.
Could
like,
care less.
They're like, you're not supposed to drive the car that far.
That's not how this works, dude.
Yeah.
He's like, well, it is, and that's where it's at.
And like, dealerships think that like.
So then what happened there?
If you have one of our learners, like, it's almost like you're on fucking house arrest. Don't leave the fucking state. You know what I mean? And so they had the fucking car shipped back here. And fucking
they meaning you guys or on his expense?
No, on us.
Okay.
And because they do this thing like the service manager, he's a fucking yes man. All day long. If you walk in there infuriated, it's just like yes, okay.
Well, that's how I got a loaner a few times. I was like, fuck this, fuck you. I spent way too much money.
So I have a Jeep. The same thing when I had to get my Jeep serviced. They didn't have a loaner for me. I'm like, I can't not have a car.
Yeah.
Like I have to go.
And
to
you want me
work.
to get a rental car on my dime? And then
that's what they wanted me to do.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm not doing that because this is a fuck up on your end because my car's still under warranty.
I got it on the phone. Yes to me. So I'm like, all right, cool. But then they're like, well, then there was one point there's no cars. They're like, well, we work with Enterprise rental cars. So I call Enterprise, no cars from here to fucking Pakistan. Like, and then I just fucking ate it. I got my own rental car for a day or two. I was so pissed. I was like,
dude, sometimes it's easier just to say fuck.
It really was.
It all depends on the situation.
Depends on the day when I pick and choose my battle.
Exactly. Some days it's easier just to be like, you know what, fuck it. I'll put out $100 and just rent a goddamn cheap ass car. Gets me A to B.
To end that story, so that car got sent back from Seattle.
What's the guy do that does this? That went to Seattle? Is he like a traveling salesman?
He must something.
I
have
First
no
time
idea.
he ever left the state.
He's got to be loaded to not give a fuck that much.
That's what I was thinking.
Here's how much he didn't give a fuck. Okay, so the car came back to our dealership on a flatbed. Okay, with
which had to be a
front
hefty
windows
charge.
busted.
No shit.
Windshield busted, and a sign on the steering wheel taped on a piece of paper that said "fuck you."
No way. That's impressive.
I was like, wait, this dude's either a legend or he's just a real big fucking.
You didn't look. I would have looked into this guy, man.
So where did he leave it? Did he leave it at like an airport parking lot or like?
To be honest, I don't know. I don't know that detail. I just know it was in Seattle.
So did he get his car back from you guys?
Yeah, he got his car back. Gave him his car back. And he got like so much money taken off the fucking bill and like all this other shit. We covered the fucking rental and like all this other shit.
Dude.
But yeah.
Wow.
And he busted that shit up?
Yeah, and I'm still waiting for parts for it.
Oh my god.
His real car?
No, for the
rental
loaner. Yeah.
Dude. What was his car? What did he have?
I want to say he had a Land Rover Velar.
So like the bigger, newer ones?
It's kind of like your car, except it's squatted down. It's like a little bit longer. It almost looks like a wagon.
I know what you're talking about.
So, and they're nice, but it's
Dude, if I did that with my Jeep and a loaner, I'd go to jail.
Right.
How do you get away with that?
I don't know. I just fix all my own shit, dude.
That's what I say.
That's fucking bananas.
So, yeah, I was going to tell you because it was kind of a cool story, but I drive that fucking Subaru out there.
Yeah.
And it was funny, like, reading these and, like, the names and stuff you were bringing up. The person that actually got me into, like, Subarus and shit was Bucky.
Yeah, he's like the fucking spokesperson. It seems like for Subaru. Everyone that says Subarus are like, dude, Bucky.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, no.
I seen his shit and I was like, I need one.
I'll tell him that. When I see him next.
I'll take anything that's reliable. I don't even care. If it can haul my tools and it's reliable, that's the kind of car I want.
I'll get to that point after maybe like 2 more cars. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Before you're still there with the first car. You know which ones I really fucking like are those Lamborghini truck SUVs.
Oh, the Urus. Yeah.
Those bitches
They're
are
badass.
Because they're not like gaudy Lamborghini.
Yeah.
They're kind of like subtle fucking, man.
But they're fucking quick.
I can imagine.
All right, we're rolling.
All right, everybody. Welcome to this episode of the Holocord Podcast. I'm Vinny Keller. I'm here with Bill Riley.
What's going on?
Dan Steinman,
Hey.
also known as Deep Dish Dan. Today we have a special guest with us who is a professional skateboarder, stunt performer, author, addiction interventionist, motivational speaker, and former member of the CKY crew. Please welcome Brandon Novak.
Hey, man. Thanks for having me, fellas.
Thanks for doing this. We appreciate it.
So, could you just give us like a little bit of a backstory of where you come from, Brandon?
Yeah. Some might say it's a bit of a colorful past. I like to say I've been around the block a few times. Born and raised in Baltimore. Come from a really good family, a loving home, a mother that's a nuclear physicist on the board of Mercy Hospital, a brother who's an attorney in the White House who practices pensions and benefits, and a father who was around just enough to let me know that he was not around. Never held a job a day in his life. Taught me one thing, if and when I go to prison, how to conduct myself. Succumbed to his addiction, and he no longer walks this earth with us. Me, on the other hand, I got my first skateboard at the age of 7. And that night when my mother put me to bed, she said, Brandon, what would you like me to do with the skateboard? And I said, I want it in bed with me. She said, why? And I said, because if I die, I want it to go with me. The moment that board touched my hand, I knew I was going to be a professional skateboarder. I ate it. I breathed it. I slept it. I dreamt it. At 14, I was the first skateboarder to be endorsed by Gatorade. Flying to Chicago to the Quaker Oats building where they made Gatorade at the time, and they put me on a treadmill and Michael Jordan on a treadmill directly next to me, and they strapped these EKGs to our chest and give us each Gatorade to see the effects that it has on different sports players. At 15, I'm touring the world with Tony Hawk. I'm designing my pro model for Pal Peralta, and I have a private tutor that flies with. A little bit further down the road, I end up in those movies Jackass and TV shows Viva La Bam and CKYs and Bam's and Holy Union, and fast forward a little bit further down the road, I become a New York Times top 10 selling author of an autobiography addiction memoir. So from an outsider's perspective, from an external point of view, I was an individual who did a lot of things that people would accredit to success, happiness, potentially even dream of doing. And the reality is that's very true. But the flip side to that coin is what my life really looked like. Is May 25th, 2015, I came to on life support in Mercy Hospital in Baltimore City, the very same hospital my mother's on the board of. After being under for 7 days from an overdose of heroin and cocaine, I was about to walk into my 13th inpatient treatment center. I had lost count of outpatients and detoxes. My mother had bought me a plot. People had taken life insurance policies out on me. I had been medevaced to 4 different hospitals in 4 different states for 4 different overdoses. In the beginning of my addiction, my mother used to pray to God, please don't let me receive that phone call tonight. Please don't let me receive that phone call that my son has succumbed to his addiction. To, at the end of my run, praying to God, please let me get that phone call, just so I can have a peace of mind knowing that he's safe once and for all. A 38-year-old homeless heroin addict who resided on the corner in Baltimore, prostituting my body just to secure enough finances to acquire another bag of heroin. You know, like wanted to kill myself on a daily basis. I just didn't want to hurt myself in the process. And ultimately, at the end, what I credit to the change that's taken place that allows me to sit at this table before you gentlemen is that I had this spiritual experience where the God of my understanding showed up and divinely inconvenienced me in just such a manner that he created just a big enough gap between me and the last bag of heroin that I shot to allow me to have that moment of clarity to see what my life really looked like was. And I was no longer acceptable of it. Those behaviors no longer made sense to me. And at that point, I could no longer deny the severity of the situation that I had created for myself or found myself in, and I was no longer willing to accept it. So for the first time in my life, I kind of went from possessing a job that consisted of knowing everything to coming to the understanding that what I do know is that I don't fucking know. And my very best thinking places me here time after time, and the common denominator in my problems were me. So simply I just got out of my way, put my hand out, asked for a little bit of help, accepted the suggestions, followed it, and I dumbed my way into this table with you boys.
Hell yeah.
I like what you said there, that you got out of your own way. Like sometimes I feel like that's the problem with most people in any situation at all, is that they're always in their own way. Like when somebody says they can't do something, it's just because
it's their own mindset.
Their own mindset, right?
Absolutely. Mentality creates reality. If you change your perception, you can change your world. And you know, I was never the kind of guy who had to see it to believe it. If I believed it, I could see it. You know, and skateboarding, thank God for skateboarding, but I believe that skateboarding weeds out quitters, you know? So, like, I was never going to be okay with being one of those addicts who just, like, lived to get high and said, this is my life. You know, like, I knew it was going to play out one of two ways. Either I was going to fucking die of an overdose or I was going to get sober. I remember filming Viva La Bam back at Bam's house in Westchester. And we'd finish filming for the day, and everyone would go to the pub, to the bar, and the cast and the crew, and I'd be like, all right, I'll meet you guys there, but I'm going to go to a meeting. And Bam would be like, you're going to go to a fucking AA meeting before you meet us at the bar? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, what's the point? And he didn't understand it, rightfully so. But for me, the point was that, like, I knew that one day either it would take... meaning sobriety, or my alcoholism would take, meaning my life. So you know what I mean. So it was like, I wasn't gonna accept just a fucking mediocre pathway. You know, like it's got to be all or nothing. Whether I'm fucking sober, I'm sober to the fucking hilltops, and I'm all about health and wellness and bettering myself, bettering my life, bettering my situations, my outcomes, my desired destinations. Or I'm just like, fuck it, let's shoot dope, let's fucking smoke crack, let's fuck hookers, let's burn this house down. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
it's one extreme or the other.
Yeah.
Exactly. No middle ground with you.
No. You know,
Which can be a good thing.
Yeah.
Because you're always 100% into whatever you're doing. But
Yeah,
if
like
it's
the
a negative
skateboarding
thing,
and
you're
stuff.
going to die. It's
Right.
just as simple as that.
Yeah.
It's all about the approach you take.
It is.
So a question I had, and since you've already brought it up, like the Viva La Bam days, I was always curious as to how much of that was like just a ruse for the camera, and when the camera shut off, how much of that, like those antics, carried over into real life.
I mean, it just depended on the actual antics that you're speaking about. You know what I mean? Because nobody's gonna wake up to fucking throw a TV through their window. Right? Just to get a rise out of your buddy. But like, did we fuck with each other? Yeah, I'm sure the same amount that you guys fuck with each other.
Absolutely.
You know, when the cameras are on, it's a bit more
It's a little
extreme.
elevated.
And there's always a storyline, right? Like they give us a script, we come up with a script, but then we divert from that script, and it goes in all these different ways too. So it's I'd say probably 60 scripted, 40 not.
Yeah, just kind of figuring that out on the fly.
Yeah. But not really, because there's like in the background, there's a timeline, there's a script
There's
that's
framework,
written.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's a bubble you have to stay in, but within there's a lot of like free range to kind of just.
Yeah, but then there's not even really a bubble. You know what I mean? It's we understand it because it has to make sense when it hits the TV, right? Left to our minds, it just is like fucking
chaos.
It could go anywhere.
Christ. So it definitely, we understand that it makes sense, and we have to hit points in the story to bring it all together. But that's why, like, everyone has a job. You know what I mean? Like the producer, the director, the lineman, the characters. You know, and we just do what we want, and everyone has a vision. But everyone has a different job or a different role on the set, and we kind of respected that. And you know, when we would get too far out, they'd pull us back in. Like, it doesn't fucking make any sense to do this. How does this fit into that story? And we're like, well, it doesn't, but it's fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
And we would just do it anyways. And when they'd say no, we'd do it anyways. And then a lot of times they would appease us. I mean, they'd just film whatever, and then it would just not make it anywhere.
So like on Bam's Unholy Union, when you broke your legs, did you really break your legs, or was that part of the
Fuck
script?
yeah, no,
Okay.
that was not scripted. That was not in there for me to do that. Hawk just flew in. We were there, boards, and it was just like made sense.
Right.
But that was absolutely not scripted.
And then they just added it in there because it worked.
Yeah, it definitely worked.
Cool.
You know.
Yeah, it was stuff like that I was always curious about.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, man. I mean, we see these things, and it's like, from our end, you know, watching the TV or watching YouTube, whatever it is, you got to wonder how much is scripted. You know what I mean? You know, we've all thought the same thing that Bill just mentioned. You know, what was put there intentionally and what just actually happened.
Yeah. I mean, like, let me try to think of an example. Like
I just watched the other day on YouTube. I found a video that says Brandon Novak does a 900 or tries to do a 900, and you come down and you slam, man, and bam, flips you over, and they carried you up. You know which one I'm talking about, Vinny?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, they carried you up and laid you on a pyramid in a skate park, whatever park you were in, and you were screaming. I think you said your pelvis was broken, or
oh yeah, Christ, so much fucking bullshit that we did. It just depended on the day and the characters that showed up.
yeah.
Right.
You know.
Well, the one that Bill was referring to, I remember. I think I remember you saying, like, your initiative going in to try to do that trick or stunt was like, whatever happens, it's a fucking win-win. If I land it, it's gonna be fucking sick because it's great footage, and if I fucking bail, it's still gonna be great footage. But you know,
I'll suck for me.
Yeah, but I'll still get fucking pain meds at the fucking end of the day. You know what I mean?
Yeah, justified, you know, certified free pass from the doctors and my friends to allow me to sit on the sofa and fucking eat all the pain pills I get at once. You know, so it's like, if you weigh the scales of justice, my role was really simple to see, right? Like, you take a guy who prior to this was a homeless heroin addict in Baltimore City, letting men blow him to get more fucking heroin. Right, that's pretty much the lowest of the lows. Can't really get much lower than that. And then I wake up one day in this fucking, you know, for lack of better words, mansion in the outskirts of Westchester with like TV crews and sets and fame and fortune, and I'm thrusted into this role on the camera, still with the same addict mentality and tendencies, but knowing that I have to. You know, not really partake in those activities if I want to keep this new gig going, because they're not going to deal with it. So I would look for any way that I could to get a justifiable free pass to get high, right? Like, because it was always okay for me to drink wine and sniff coke, right? Those was always like sociably acceptable things. And plus, when I did those things, I didn't like fall asleep in mid conversation or steal your car or wallet to get more. So like, and they were doing the best they could with what they had, but they just didn't understand alcoholism or addiction, and why would they at that point? So I would partake in the blow and the wine because like that was there, and it was the only thing that was A, acceptable, and B, that would allow me to get out of my own self, which is ultimately what the problem always was me, internally, and I needed something to escape. when that came through a form of a drink or a drug. And so I would do that because it was there and it was readily available. But anytime I got a chance to get what I really liked, which was fucking opiates, I was all about it. So the stunts that no one wanted to do and everyone passed up, I'd be like, fuck yeah, let's do it. If I make it, great footage, gets me on air a little bit longer, ratings go higher, paychecks a little bit more, which ultimately just full circle goes back to my addiction. Or I get hurt, fucking footage is even better, ratings are even higher. I'm rushed to the hospital, doctors give me scripts for opiates, and now like my friends allow me to sit on the sofa and get fucked up.
All right. And you don't even have to pay for that hospital trip or
no, I actually get paid more for it. I get paid more to get hurt in the long run.
Is that how that works? Like the more stunts you do, like you get paid per stunt, or
no, but I'm just saying,
injury.
if you look at the grand scheme of things, the big picture, right? The more here was the reality: the more outlandish my behaviors are, the more outrageous my antics are, the higher the ratings go. The more in demand I become, the more money I make. So if that entails breaking fucking 10 bones or whatever, you know what I mean? Just the more shock value.
Yeah, that success facilitates the bad things for you.
Yeah, me personally, and not everyone in that world. And that's just not how it works. It's just like, as an alcoholic already prior to entering into that world, I fucking figured out a way to create these narratives that will further enable my alcoholic behaviors.
Right.
You know, it's what fucking alcoholics do.
Right. It's a tendency for any addict to further their own addiction.
No matter what that is, whether it's sex, food, fucking video games, fucking shopping, drugs. You know, it's how it goes.
There's always an excuse. There's always a game plan there to try to get more of it. Try to feed into it.
Yeah.
So that kind of brings me to another question. And I guess in the mindset of like all these antics are going to bring me more lucrative payday, or, you know, more trips to the hospital to get more drugs. Like the times where like you would get really fucked with, like the one episode I watched of Viva La Bam, I remember it was at Groundhog's Day, and like Bam's talking to the camera, and then he just slaps you in the face out of nowhere. Like, are those things expected to happen, or is it like out of the blue and you're just like, you have a resentment towards it? Because I feel like anybody getting slapped in the face for any reason at any time, embarrassingly on TV like that, like would really cause some kind of resentment. Well, but like if you're in the mindset of like, this is going to help us, then
but then take it back to the beginning of what I started out with. If you come from prior to entering into this world, the world of eating out of trash cans, standing on the corner, praying to God that guys want to rent me to fucking blow me just to get another $10 bag of heroin.
Right.
Do you really think a fucking slap in the face is going to change the weather of my day? Like, on national TV, which fucking secures a great paycheck from Paramount. It's like, dude.
Yeah.
That's why it was perfect.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah, no, it was fucking welcomed. And like things like that weren't always expected, but then they always were. You know, because you had to look at, it wasn't like we were filming the Titanic.
Yeah, you always knew there was a possibility the Bam's going to turn around and just slap you for no reason at all, just because it's funny.
Any given time. Yeah, so that's just kind of like par for the course in that world.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
But again, I think people might not be able to kind of get into that mind frame, because it's just unless you're in that mind frame, right? Like it's a real disconnection from whoever reality is,
right?
You know, so
and that's
that
why
was
like
our
watching
reality at that time.
Watching this as kids, you're like, these dudes are fucking bananas. Like,
yeah,
and like I guess you never really you just think that continues on when the cameras are off.
Yeah, nah, not really.
Like it's almost like when we were watching it, we were in like middle school, so like we're thinking, or at least I was at the time. Like you guys are doing fucked up shit, and then the cameras are rolling for this period of time, and then it stops, and then you guys are still doing fucked up shit. Like your whole life is just this gnarly mess of fucking
it looks
nonsense.
like just a continuation from from the perspective
like
of
it almost
the viewer.
like I guess the way it was filmed and put together, it seemed like a documentary of like what was happening on the day, that particular day you were filming.
Yeah.
It makes you think, like, was Bam just like randomly one day is like, you see them doing shopping carts at Acme,
right?
You know what I mean? Like, it's just, is that just your normal day because you're bored, or what are we rolling?
But I mean, yeah, and it's good to have like some kind of inside perspective now and kind of.
Right.
Yeah, it's cool to get a little bit of those answers. But yeah, man. So what are you doing now? Like,
Fuck, I do a million things.
That's what I mean. Like income wise, what's your main gig? Like what, I know you're touring with Banyan Treatment Center.
I work for them.
Okay.
I've been blessed with the ability to make my own schedule.
Okay.
Pretty much for everything I do.
That's great.
So it's funny. Prior to sobriety, my life consisted of the getting and using and finding ways and means to get more drugs and alcohol. 24/7. That's all my brain fucking revolves around. Who I went with, what I did, when we did it, all pertained to drugs and alcohol. That was it. And now it's rather ironic, and it's talk about destiny and fate. Is my life today is the exact same thing, except the only difference is I don't partake in them, and I get paid very well from them. So it's like it's a fucking blessing. I'm an interventionist. I'm a motivational speaker. I own men's recovery homes, where gentlemen that would go to treatment get out of and don't have a safe, secure home to return to. I own houses in Wilmington, Delaware. I work in the drug and alcohol treatment field. I help people get into treatment. Sent somebody to treatment last night. Sent another girl to treatment the night before. Just constantly doing that. Tomorrow morning at 8 a.m., I fly to Kentucky to be a keynote speaker at an event with the mayor. Professional skateboarder. Just finished a video part that I'm putting out that I went to Barcelona, Spain and filmed. A guy in recovery, a guy who sponsors other people, an author. I write books. Yeah, I fucking forget the shit that I have going on. But it's all centered around drugs and alcohol, except for the skateboarding part.
Right.
Right. Is creating content, like YouTube content, in the mix of all that as well?
Yeah, I have all that shit too. Yeah. So I don't really run it, but I have I have a YouTube page. I have a whole all that stuff. If that's the question.
Yeah, I was checking out some of the YouTube. Yeah, I mean, you got some cool stuff on there. A lot of the skate videos, man. I'm really interested to see more current skate videos. So, I mean, when's the new part going to drop?
I don't know.
Roughly.
I don't know.
Okay.
Again, being's my own boss, and I have the liberty to fucking do it whenever I want.
Yeah.
It's kind of like I'm not under a deadline of anything, so that's cool. But that's the crazy thing about it. At 42 years old, I'm doing everything that I used to do, but better than I ever did it.
And now you can have more fun doing it.
Skateboarding, fucking traveling, fucking health and wellness. I work out fucking 4 days a week with a trainer. You name it. I am physically, mentally, spiritually, financially. At 42 years old, I'm in the best shape I've ever been in, and doing all the shit that I've ever done better in my life than I ever have.
That's awesome, man.
So do you have your chance to create your pro deck now?
Mm-hmm. I did.
Is that out now? It
came out with the Heart Supply.
The Heart Supply, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And the Heart Supply is a new company that the creator of Element started. The guy who created Element sold Element to Billabong, and now wants to recreate, not another element, but another element, if you will.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the Heart Supply.
Now, does any of that? Do you still have a design from before when you were designing your deck with Pal Peralta?
No, I mean that was fucking decades and decades ago. So that shape then wouldn't be relevant today.
Right.
So.
Okay.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, I might have to go out and grab a Heart Supply deck. I still skate a little bit, not.
Yeah, man. Dude, I found that that's the only thing that really shuts my brain off.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of money, tried a lot of things to fucking quiet this.
Yeah.
And I recently learned it a year ago when I was trying this. I was battling this trick and I had to go back to the spot 3 different times in 3 different days, and got hurt a few times. And even though I didn't make it, it dawned on me at that very moment. I'm like, this is exactly why I love skateboarding. It's doing exactly for me what I've always tried to get done. And And it was to allow me to really be in the moment.
Right.
Like I wasn't thinking about where I was going, who I was doing it with, when this trip is, nothing. I was just like in the moment. And I'm like, that's
the battle that you want to fight. That's what you want to, if you're going to wrestle with yourself about something, it's, what do I need to do to nail this trick? What do I, you know what I mean? That's it takes away your schedule. It takes away the stress. Like everything is gone. It's you and the board at that point.
Yeah.
That's a great feeling.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So that's why so now I really try to carve out time in my schedule to go on trips. Like I'm going this, tomorrow I fly out. So, I'll be in Kentucky, then Florida, but then from Florida I'm flying to New York for the weekend, and it's all these skaters are just going into the city and skating, and I like prioritize that to like,
That's great, man. That's great.
Really, that's the stuff I love to do.
You've probably gotten to skate some really incredible spots throughout the world.
Yeah.
What's any favorites? Anything?
Barcelona's the best. My favorite place to go.
Okay.
It's kind of like
people said that's like it was built specifically for skating, but probably by accident for sure.
Yeah, I don't know accident or not, but it's like Jerusalem for the holy goers. In that perspective, everything's marble, everything's smooth. You don't get kicked out of anywhere.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So, do you have any local skate spots like around here per se that?
Not really around here. When I skate, I'll go back to Baltimore, which is where I'm from, and I have a crew of guys that I skate there with because I grew up skating there. So, and my mother's there, so I'll go back, and there's the Hamden Skate Park, and they're just building a new park right in downtown Baltimore, like in the harbor, which is going to open, I think, in the next few months. Everyone's really excited about.
That's great, man.
Really, just the crew. You know what I mean? Spots are rad, but if you have the right crew, that can make a fucking empty parking lot amazing.
Oh, yeah. We've done that for sure.
Yeah,
we grew up skating together.
Totally, you gotta have the right crew, man. You put the right crew together, you can have fun anywhere.
We would skate like a Modell's loading dock for like 7 hours.
Oh, that was the spot to go to.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and then we had the Modell's 5 with the little flat at the bottom. Yeah,
that's the move.
Although none of us were really that good. We had a few kids in our circle that were pretty rad, but.
We always had fun, though. That was the thing, man. It wasn't about being the best. It was just about going out and having fun. And that's the beauty of skateboarding. You don't have to be the best guy out there. You go out, like you're saying, you take the stress of the day away. You put yourself in that right mindset, that positive mentality, like, yo, I'm going to nail this trick. You know what I mean? And that's the bread and butter of the whole thing. But
yeah, so you were discovered by Tony Hawk at 14?
Bucky Lasik, actually.
Oh, okay. So how did that come about?
I'm from Baltimore. He was from Baltimore, and he was the Baltimore icon. And obviously, I knew it. I wanted to be like him. I wanted to skate like him. And he saw something in me, and he kind of took me under his wing.
And where was he at in his career at that point? He was already professional.
He was pro for PAL, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so he got me sponsored by Flow, and then on the wheels, and then the boards, and then we would go out and stay at like Hawk's house in California and stuff like that.
And at that time, for him, it was possible to make a living with skateboarding, like a good living, and which transferred into you making a good living, getting all them sponsorships at that time.
Yeah, totally.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's great, man. The what was it like, Pal Peralta? And like, what would that be? Late 90s, something like that.
Early 90s.
Early 90s.
Yeah, early 90s. It was amazing. I mean, it was everything that you could imagine plus some. It was all I ever wanted. It was all I ever like dreamed of, and like to achieve it at such a young age, it was really fucking, and it was mind blowing. But then it went from that directly to addiction, so there was no like crossover. So I went from skateboarding to drugs, and they were both extreme.
Yeah, and like you said, man, everything you do is to the extremes. So.
Yeah, totally.
And how did the drugs actually come into play? Like.
Well, I believe I was genetically predisposed, right? Like nobody held them to my fucking mouth or nose or shot on my arm with a gun to my head. My father was an addict, and his father was an addict. And I think that paired with the upbringing that I was raised in with my father, and kind of being predisposed to behaviors of an alcoholic. I picked those, so it's a combination of things. Lack of accountability. It wasn't like I had to be in when the street lights came on, or a job where I had to check in with the boss every day, and I skateboarded. Right. So, and I was really successful at a young age, so people believed that there was a method to my madness, and there was, until there wasn't. And then I had gotten to my alcoholism and my addiction, and before I knew it, I was like too far out there to kind of be pulled back in.
Right. And was this hidden from like Bucky and Tony Hawk, like at the time?
Oh,
did they
to
know?
the best of my ability, until it was no longer hidden. It wasn't an open topic of conversation about how fucking loaded I'm going to get. And I avoided that like the plague, 'cause with everybody, not even just them, because once that's exposed, then there would probably begin. I'd probably begin to have some repercussions from my actions. And I didn't want that, because I wanted to, again, create this narrative that allowed me to support my idiotic behaviors to continue to drink and drug without repercussions.
Right.
It's crazy, man. It's crazy. You got a wild story for sure.
Yeah, with a little bit of like money laundering in there.
Yeah.
Which I was surprised to see. I was like, how the fuck did you even get away with any of that?
Well, it was different then than today. You know what I mean? This is like before fucking 9/11, and you really need to have like an ID to go through. I forget what it was, but like it's not as an extensive security checkpoint as it is today. So you could just like, everything was easier then. I remember, I used to sell like pounds and pounds of herb, and like 20, 30, 40, 50 pound boxes of herb, and the price, like before 9/11, I think when I was getting them was like, it was like $600 a pound maybe, and then directly like the day after 9/11 they went up to 900. Yeah. Because security, right? Like you can't. Everything just got so intensified.
Instantly, that much more difficult to do. Yeah.
Literally overnight. So to put in perspective how I could do it then as opposed to now.
Right.
Now, fuck. Good luck.
Yeah, I mean, the world was just a different place before something like 9/11. You know what I mean? It made every single person in the world stop and reevaluate everything. Oh shit, we're exposed, in this many ways, and then everything locked down, and
especially in airports,
right?
In particular,
right. So if you're doing something that they're already looking for in the first place, now they're looking 10 times harder to make sure you don't get on. Whether you're just bringing in some pot, bringing in some whatever, or Oh man, it's tough stuff. It's crazy, but
So, are you able to tell us how the book Dream Seller came to fruition?
Yeah, I had no intentions on writing a book. I was never like a fucking school guy. I didn't graduate high school. I got my GED while I was incarcerated in the penitentiary after Dream Seller came out. But I wrote the book because while living with Bam and filming Viva La Bams, we'd finish and we all go to the bar, the cast and the crew, and be a big table of like 40 people at a bar. And he was always very entertained with the stories and predicaments I found myself in as a direct result of my addiction.
And he being Bam?
Yeah. Okay. So he'd be like, yo, tell this story, tell that story. And I would tell these stories, and again, at a table of 40 or 50, you could hear like a pencil or a pin drop. So after like 3 days of this, he's like, yo, you're going to write a book. Now, mind you, I made it to the 11th grade, got kicked out for drugs and alcohol. School was not my forte. I wasn't a fool. It just didn't really, it wasn't on my priority list. And he said, you're going to write a book. And in order to live at my house and be on the show, I have to see you with a pen and a paper in your hand all the time. And he handed me like a notebook and a pen. And he said, you have to have this in your hand every fucking time I see you. The first time you don't have it in your hand, you're going back to Baltimore. And you don't have to be writing. You just have to have it. So again, weighing the scales of justice, do I want to I don't really want to write a book, but do I want to go back and be homeless and eat out of trash cans? I definitely don't want to fucking do that. So I made the decision pretty easy. I went to Barnes and Nobles and I got this book that I really enjoyed called A Million Little Pieces by James Frey, and I read that book and kind of sketched out an outline of how I thought I'd like to write my book, and I wrote it. I wrote it in 12 chapters, and I handed it to Bam, and he's like, yo, this is actually really fucking good. And he gave it to my co-author, Joe Franz, and Joe Franz turned 12 chapters into 23. And then Bam's manager got me a literary agent, because they're not easy to acquire either. And that literary agent shopped my manuscript around, and there were a whole lot of no's and a few yeses, and finally we all came to an agreement with Kensington Press, Citadel Publishers, and at that very moment I became a published author.
That's crazy, man. That's awesome.
I've read it, and I've read it up to the update, and it looks like you weren't too happy with the original ending.
No, fuck no. Because it exposed my behaviors, right? And I was trying to put on this facade that, like, I was doing great and I didn't have a problem. Which is kind of like a Monday morning for every other addict and alcoholic in the world.
Sure.
And Franz was exposing my behaviors. The number one thing that I was not with and was not about. And then ultimately, fate took its course, as it always does.
Sure. So, but it seemed like Franz just wanted you to be honest and the book to be honest.
Mm-hmm. And honesty and addicts and alcoholics are like mixing oil and water.
Sure.
They don't really vibe well, especially if you're untreated, like I was. I mean, I wrote that book fucking high out of my mind.
Mm.
So it seems like that time at BAM's was like super beneficial to you. Like it needed to fucking happen. But it also, from an outsider's perspective, seems like it wasn't the best environment to get clean in anyway.
But I wasn't clean.
Right. Well, even to like attempt to get clean, because I'm sure BAM tried everything in his power to help you, right?
Yeah, but again, they had no idea about alcoholism or addiction.
Right.
So they were just doing the best they could with what they had.
Mm-hmm.
I remember at one point a loved one in my life they really contemplated fucking chaining me to the radiator in the basement to detox me. Now, is that the right way to go about it?
No.
Who's to say though? Maybe not. Like that, what I've learned, and I don't recommend that, and I don't say do that.
Yeah.
But like what I have learned in this area of harm reduction that I'm doing, right, and being out there and being a total number one advocate for recovery, sobriety, however that may look. I've learned a few different things, but the one thing I learned is that it's not a black and white, one size fits all. Right? If that were the case, it'd be very simple, and we wouldn't be in the predicament we are today with the epidemic. And number two, what I learned is that there's no margin for error, yet it's impossible to do perfect. You know what I mean? It's in the way that people are dying today. It's such a cliche thing. Oh, you could die. Yes, you could die. But like today, you could really die because it's the fentanyl, the car fentanyl, and they're putting it in everything. Is that the right approach? Absolutely not. But who the fuck knows? You know what I mean? Who the fuck knows?
True.
So, you never really understand it until you understand it. Like, my story was not my story until it became my story.
Right.
And what I've learned in my life is that everything's pretty much in retrospect. Live forward and learn backwards.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So now I can see, like... But again, with a different perspective, now it's really easy for me to look back and recognize the synchronicity of the life events that have brought me literally to this table right here that prove to me that the God of my understanding has been doing more for me, way more than I could ever conceive, longer than I ever had a notion of. You know what I mean? So I don't believe in luck or coincidence. I believe everything is destiny and fate. And, we all have the choice of free will, right? So I could choose A or B. But if I take A, I get kind of A's path. And if I take B, I get B's path. So if I had the formula to a guide to a perfect life, I'd sell it, I'd bottle it, I'd sell it, I'd be a billionaire a billion times over. You know, I don't. I'm just trying to do the best that I can with what I have. And
yeah, I don't think anybody has that formula ever. And but I do think that you being a former addict and really being to hell and back several times over, I'm sure, gives you an infinite amount of wisdom, which is what I'm feeling right now. Like,
it plays in my favor. My defects have become my assets. So what I've learned is that, like, the demographic that I deal with on a pretty much daily basis, which are addicts and alcoholics, there's a few things. The first thing is that they're defiant by nature. They hate authority, and they'll never conform unless it becomes their idea, right? So then they get this guy whose story holds depth and weight, where usually they build this really fucking high, thick wall up that's unpenetratable, right? Because, like, they don't want to be fucked with. But all of a sudden, I come in and they know my stories, whether it's through the books, through the fucking YouTubes, the podcast, the press, the promote, whatever. And all of a sudden, I'm immediately able to get through that wall that most other people aren't.
Right.
You know, so
you seem to bring a credibility there to a world that doesn't have much credibility in it,
or that they don't even want.
Right.
They're in their own world and they don't want to be fucked with.
Right. They ignore credibility in most cases, but you bring a certain amount of credibility from your past experiences, and like you said, your defects have become your assets now to explain to them. Listen, man, I know you're in this way, you know, but it's by your own hand, and look what you can do if you decide to, you know, get out of your own way, like you were saying earlier.
And I'm not coming from a professor's approach, right?
There's no looking down your nose or anything.
I get it. It makes sense to me why you choose to continue to shoot more heroin, drink more wine, sniff more coke, eat more pills, smoke more weed, instead of listening to me. I've seen me do it. Fuck yeah. I get that. That's cool, you know?
Right.
And, like, if that guy can do it, then there's no reason why I can't.
Yeah.
And when I can get somebody to that point, the terms of their contract will forever change, because it becomes their idea. It has to become our idea. Doesn't matter how great you tell me my life's going to be. Who the fuck cares? Until I buy into the notion to conceive that like, maybe there is something here. Maybe I'm going to start believing that I can do this. And when I believe that I can do this, guess what? I excelled at a rapid pace and became like a billboard for fucking treatment centers.
Right. I believe it, man. I mean, you're a very inspirational person. You know, no matter what it is you want to do, you, like you said, you do it 110%. I mean, and you really do it well. So
what I love about the wisdom that you're sharing is that I think it carries over into any type of situation that somebody is doubting themselves, or a hump they can't get over. If somebody's in a career they don't like, to take that step out of the career, or like
I was just having
a striving single mother who like feels like she's helpless and isn't able to get out of her situation. I feel like that everything you're saying is just such a universal message.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this is not wisdom for somebody in recovery, somebody addicted to a particular thing. This is just life experience that's going to get you further than you are now, regardless of what path you're on.
Because ultimately what I learned is that the me, particularly speaking about me, how I got to where I'm at today is because I was an addict and an alcoholic. I still am, right? But once I did this work on myself, I learned that my particular situation really has nothing to do with drugs and alcohol. It was the catalyst that got me to the position that I'm in today. But the reality is, the drugs and alcohol were not my problem. They were actually the exact opposite to my problem. They were the solution to my problem, right? This was the solution. You take my solution away, now I'm left with the problem, which is me, my thinking, my attitude, my behavior. And without my solution, I'm like a stranger in my own skin trying to figure out who the fuck let me in. Now I got to escape, so I get back to the drink and the drug. Once I know that, then I know that what I can control in this life is me, my thinking, my attitude, my behavior. The moment I place these expectations on anyone here, more realistic, unrealistic expectations, all I'm doing is set myself up for a resentment, because nobody's ever going to live up to my standards, because I am the problem and I am my biggest critic. and no one's ever going to do it as good as I think it should be done. So the sooner I learned out that the problem is really self, this is the solution, my world becomes easier to navigate through. And that goes with anything in life, whether it's fucking sex, food, shopping, porn, whatever it is. Those are the solutions to the problem. The problem lies within the thing that sits in my head between my two ears. So I had to have for me, I had to have a spiritual experience. And all the definition of a spiritual experience is a psychic change. Meaning that I today no longer think how I thought when I walked into my 13th treatment center. I'm a completely changed man. I've been rewired in every sense of the fucking word. And that's as a direct result of the spiritual experience that I received.
So are there ever days where, saying that you're rewired, are there ever days where you're struggling, where you're just like, maybe I should just go pick up a bag, or maybe I shouldn't?
Not once.
So you finally...
I'm literally a free man in every
incredible.
sense of the word. I mean, I'm a fucking interventionist. That there's times where I have bags of heroin in my hand, and my first thought is, okay, where's the toilet to flush these? That's not, nor was it ever my first thought.
Right.
Right. My first thought was like, fuck, go to the bathroom so I can hurry up and bang these, and you won't know. Whatever.
Right.
I no longer look at things the way I used to look at them. I'm a completely rewired, changed individual.
That's amazing.
But it's contingent upon. The problem for me was I always underestimated the opponent that I was up against, right? Okay. And that's why I failed miserably every fucking time. Once I had rearranged the furniture on the Titanic so many times, I realized my ship always went down. And then I kind of started paying a little bit more respect to it, because I learned, like, a hard head makes for a soft ass, and I have the softest ass in this room, I promise you. I failed so many fucking times. I've basically did process of elimination, but backwards, right? And so now it was pretty easy for me to succeed at the end at 38, because I did all the fucking bullshit before, and I got here because I just ran out of ideas and options. Right? Like, I tried everything, and I'm a fucking smart guy. I tried everything known to man to drink or drug without repercussions, and it never fucking worked. So then when I finally got here, I just I didn't want to be here. I just didn't have anywhere else to go, and I wanted to kill myself, but I didn't want to hurt myself in the process. I was in this really weird fucking purgatory state. Yeah. So I'm like, dude, I hear it said often, and it's fucking cliché, but it's so true. It was the last thing I tried that was the first thing that worked. And now I can honestly sit here and say my obsession to drink or drug has been removed. The desire has been lifted. You could sit here and cut a bag of fucking blow in front of me, and I'd say, all right, cool. I hope you have fun.
You know, enjoy yourself.
I'm just, yeah.
That's a beautiful thing, man. That is awesome that you now have that mentality where you can just look at it, hold it, whatever, and just say, nope, not for me anymore.
But I have to do a few simple things along the way to maintain that position, right? Like I have to stay proactive in my recovery. And I don't want people to listen to this and be like, oh, recovery from whatever you're trying to recover from. Again, whether it's food, sex, porn, drugs, alcohol, shopping, whatever.
Any status you've achieved in your life, there's always going to be a bit of maintenance that comes along with it. I mean, whether it's keeping a nice house, or keeping the right mindset, or having
cut the grass, you got to fucking paint the pour, whatever it is. Yeah,
exactly. There's always some bit of maintenance that comes along with it. So I get what you're saying. Like, it's not to portray the message of like it's so easy to do.
I'm done. It's and just I'll never have that again. No.
Right. There's always work to be done. It doesn't matter who you are, where you're at in the world. You've got some work to do.
So right now, at this very moment, now if you God forbid, fucking 6 months, a year down the road, and I've completely stopped doing everything I've done to this point, and we're having the same conversation, I wouldn't be able to say that with conviction like I can today.
Right.
You know.
Do you ever get tired of talking about it? Or is it something that you're so passionate about?
People say, like, dude, do you ever shut the fuck up? And I'm like, I fucking loved heroin. I still do. I love heroin. I love cocaine. I love fucking the dark places it puts you in. I couldn't get enough of it when I was doing it. And now being sober, I just can't get enough of it. Like I told you, my whole life was kind of just the same, except for a totally positive, now
it's that 110% demeanor all over again, just in a positive way now.
I get to live for my purpose.
Yeah.
But the only difference is like that I get paid from it, and I'm sober from it.
And you get to enjoy the money you're making. You get to reap the rewards of your work now.
It's truly only by the grace of God that it's kind of did this complete 360.
It's come full circle again. You wound up where you should have been in the first place without drugs and alcohol in the way now. Now you can enjoy what you've earned.
Yeah. And so, no, I don't. But I've been asked that. Definitely. But
it makes sense. It makes sense.
It's fucking. I'm so. The life that I used to live, all I ever wanted was some normality and security and stability. That's all I wanted. And I just never thought that it was obtainable or achievable. I really did not. And when I went to rehab this last time, I got a job. I went to Levittown, Pennsylvania. I lived in a recovery house for a year. And my first job out of rehab after 90 days was washing dishes for $6 an hour under the table next to a 15-year-old kid named Brian at a diner. And trust you me, I believe that I should have been much further along in my career than there.
Of course, yeah.
And
I can only imagine
back,
how like
humbling that.
How humbling.
Looking back, that honestly was some of the best times I've ever had in my life.
It's some of the most simple. There's nothing to get in the way of it.
Yeah, I would go, I'd wash dishes, I'd come home, I'd get a shower, hang with the guys in the recovery house. All I had to do was focus on paying $165 a week for rent. Right. And we'd go to a meeting. It was fucking fun, man. Yeah. Nobody really expected more out of me or anything at that point. No one even believed I'd stay sober. Then I actually stay sober and I acquire all these like responsibilities. So it's easy to get consumed in the day-to-day of shit, but I need to always remember when I just wanted to get sober and I never thought that was possible, So I'm completely like, sometimes people ask me how I'm doing. My answer is like way better than I deserve. So I'm like so content with what I'm doing and like, if people are about what I'm doing and want to surround, cool. And if they're not and want to keep it moving, cool. Right. Like I'm cool. And I never believed that sobriety was obtainable for me. So it gets me off.
All right. So you mentioned being in the recovery house, washing dishes for $6 an hour. At what point after that do you start to see things like progress? Like how quick is it?
Well, I couldn't at the time, right? Like I was incapable of seeing these blessings that were taking place at that moment.
What I mean is like
in retrospect, looking back. I could see right around my 1 year of my first year of sobriety, I was getting ready to celebrate a year, and I was about to be at that diner for 9 months because I was in treatment for 3. And then I got a message from Banyan, someone that worked at Banyan, and said, "Hey, would you be willing to come here and speak to our clients as a surprise?" I said, "Sure." I thought it was just that. And when I got there, like I was put up in like a very nice fucking penthouse of a hotel, and they're giving me all these tours, and in my mind, I'm like, are they going to ask me for a fucking donation? Like I'm living in a recovery house, washing dishes, paying $165 a week, and I had a mentor of mine is a fellow by the name of Chris Herring. He played for the Boston Celtics and the Denver Nuggets, and he's what I do, but on a bigger scale. And I'm his number one fan, and I always wanted to do what he did, but I didn't know how that worked. Right, like in the Jackass world, I'm the talent. They fly me in, I film the scene, but there takes people to get flights, hotels, fucking locations.
It's all the logistics stuff.
Yeah, and So I wanted to do the same thing in the recovery world, like what Chris Herring does. I wanted to travel the nation. I wanted to speak. I wanted to help people, but I didn't know how to do all that. And then I fly to Banyan, and I speak to the clients. And a couple of days later, I said to the guy who was like my handler, I said, I'd really like to do what Chris is doing for Banyan after I've seen it, right? And the guy said, well, and we were having dinner that night with the owner. He said, well, talk to the owner. Who knows? And I said the same thing to the owner. I said, the only dumb question is the one not asked after seeing your program and really liking what you do. And then they said to me, well, we didn't fly you here for anything. Right? So they already had this plan put together, unbeknownst to me.
Oh, shit.
So I literally tripped and fell into I told you, like, I dumbed my way into this position. I'm not bullshitting. I was washing dishes for $6 an hour, and then the next thing I know, I'm at a table being presented the opportunity to do what I really love, which is fucking addiction or alcoholism, attached with a very nice yearly salary. that I didn't even know this world existed. I had no idea. Right? I remember being in treatment, and I was in a state-funded facility for 90 days, and there was this family counselor, and he said, well, Novak, what are you going to do for work after you get out? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, well, what's your qualifications? I said, I don't fucking know. I skateboarded, and then I did, like, drugs. And no high school diploma, and she got on the computer and like did that thing where they put what you're good at that would give you
the aptitude.
Nothing came up, nothing. Then no one knew what I was going to do. And I didn't know
so
what I was
disheartening
gonna do.
when you hear that.
And I didn't know, and then my first thought was like, well, I'll go work at a nursing home. Because and they're like, are you insane?
Was there ever a thought?
Like, you can't do that with like 90 days sober. You go work in a nursing home, you become attached to an old lady, and then she croaks the next fucking day. Like, that's way too much.
Yeah, that's going to throw you into a tailspin.
Yeah, but I didn't know. I was scrambling.
After hearing that you're not, like, you had nothing, like, was there ever a thought to just be like, you know what, fuck it. Like, let me just go back.
And before, absolutely. This time, 13th treatment center in, fucking pain so great that, like, I couldn't deal with it. No. I just didn't know. I didn't.
So your only option was going forward, figuring it the fuck out.
Yeah, I was just gonna figure it out, and then I didn't even get the job. My assistant, because my patterns always kind of recreated themselves, and after learning that the behaviors were the problem, right, and the ritualistic patterns of behaviors that I would create, they got me the job at the diner because they knew that with my humility and my pride, I would never go get a job at a diner.
Right.
And they got me a job. So they said, when you finish treatment, actually my very last day of treatment, they did for me what usually they don't do is they put me in the van and they drove me to this restaurant, and I went into the kitchen and the owner of the restaurant interviewed me for this dishwashing position in the kitchen, right? And so, but the point is I had that job secured before I left treatment. And when I left treatment, I went to the recovery house, and people kind of like helped guide and direct me because they knew that I was incapable of making sensible decisions.
Yeah, they ensured
my
a safe
decision-making ability
progression.
was shit because it landed me in those places. So they kind of did for me what I couldn't do for myself.
Right.
And I remember I told you, I just got out of my way, realized my way didn't work, but like maybe theirs did, and asked for some guidance and direction, and they led me, and I just remained open-minded to follow their suggestions. And yeah, so a year into that, then Banyan reaches out, and that's kind of when things started picking up, right? Like the book stuff was coming back into play. That I didn't know anything about motivational speaking that I was going to do. I was never like my thing. Skateboarding wasn't a thing. You know what I mean? Nothing still at that point was anything yet. But I just trusted and believed, and I just focused on my recovery and my sobriety. That's all I did. And that's all I do today. But now my perception has completely changed, right? Like, I don't have to do anything. I get to do things, right? I don't go to meetings because I need to. I go because I want to.
Right.
I just have a completely different perspective on life.
Yeah, the things that used to be chores are now a choice. It's an enjoyable action.
Yeah, more like a blessing when you come from where I did.
Yeah.
You know?
That's awesome, man.
Because I didn't really get to do anything when I was drinking and drugging. Remember I told you who I went with, when I went, and what we did all revolved around how I was going to get more.
Right.
So I had to do those things. Today I like get to do these things.
That's incredible. It's such a great transformation, man. I mean, and I love the way. I don't want to say I love the way you got here, but I love the way you got here in the sense that you know, you didn't set out to do this, you didn't set out to do that. You did whatever you did, and now you're at a spot where you're helping so many people. You're able to draw from those past experiences. You're able to do all this positive stuff in the world now, and all it took was some faith. You know, it's just, you know, you believing in yourself, somebody else believing in you.
Yeah, that was it.
You know
Somebody
what I mean?
believed in me enough to then allow me to believe in me a little bit.
Right. And now that that's happened, you know, you own men's recovery centers. You're doing all this inspirational speaking. You're an interventionist. You know, all these positive things that can really do good in the world.
And the coolest thing is the men's recovery homes that I've opened. It's not like a get rich quick scheme, a millionaire fucking business venture overnight. It's actually a really like financially feasible deal, right? Like if someone completes treatment and gets out and wants to come to one of my homes, and if I have a bed available, it will cost them $180 a week to live there.
Right.
Not like 10 grand a month.
Right.
And to make it even better, I have scholarships available for the first month. So like they don't even have to like, if they don't have the resources like I didn't, they can get out, come to my recovery house, be scholarshiped for 1 month, continue to focus on the recovery of their sobriety, so that by the time that their scholarship runs out, they've been in treatment for at least a month, they've now been in my house for a month, before they start to integrate or merge back into society looking for a job, they actually, chances are good that they can actually stay
right.
sober.
You're increasing their chances. You're giving them a start, whereas, you know, you weren't able to get that certain times. You know, and that completely makes sense, man. That's, again, that's an awesome thing that you do. So many people go into a rehab and, you know, either it's court ordered and they're just doing their time until it's over, or they get forced in by family or whatever. But now, regardless of anything, they've got a month in rehab. They've got a month in Brandon's house, and they're thinking clear again. They're able to. I mean, it's their own decision at that point. What do I want to do with myself? Where do I go from here? And that's incredible, because so many people don't have the resources. The further down that rabbit hole you get, the worse off you are to get yourself out. You don't have the means to do so anymore.
And I didn't try to recreate the wheel. I simply did what worked for me and recreated the house that I lived in in Levittown, except mine are in Wilmington, Delaware.
Right.
You know?
That's awesome, dude. That's so much. It's such a simple thing.
Yeah,
like you said, you didn't try to
so
reinvent the wheel.
It's missed all the time.
Yeah, though. people think right past it.
Yeah,
like,
including myself for so long.
Yeah, I mean everybody's guilty of doing that. I mean, you look everywhere for the solution. You know, is it under the couch cushions?
Right in front of your fucking face.
Exactly. You look in front of you and you're like, oh shit, really? How long's that been there?
Totally.
But that's great, man, that you finally found that. And how many men's centers do you have?
So I opened my first one up 7.5 months ago.
Okay.
And I'm closing on the second one, which is directly across. So I own 1211 West 8th Street in Wilmington, Delaware. Okay. And I just purchased, it's closing, I think we closed in like 4 days, on 1212 West 8th Street. So literally like directly across.
Yeah.
So the one house will be a step down for the first. So like if you've been in the first house for 6 months and you're doing really well, then you can transition to the new house, which gives you like more leniency, right? Later curfews, more overnights. There's like live-in house managers that kind of watch over what goes on. Right. And it kind of gives them, it incentivizes the guys that are in the first house to want to do better to make it to the second house.
Right. Yeah, and that's an awesome thing, because I know in Dream Cellar you mentioned that you always kept the blinds drawn in the rehab because you look outside and there's guys copping. Yeah. Like that's not what you want to see when you look out the window. That's not going to inspire a new way of thinking.
Yeah. So I'll have 24 beds in total, God willing.
That's awesome.
You know?
That's awesome.
And then I'm just going to continue that process in Wilmington.
That's great.
You know?
Are you planning on spanning anywhere else?
I could. I probably will, but not right now.
Gotcha.
Taking it one step at a time.
But it's not to say that it won't. I mean, an opportunity could present itself as soon as I leave this table, and that could change. You know what I mean?
Right. You get a phone call when you're driving away from here, and it's like, oh, well, I wasn't planning on that, but hey, why argue with it?
As life has led to this point.
Right. You never know what's going to happen tomorrow.
Yeah, totally.
Now, the guys that show up at your house or want to come to your house, is there an application process, or is there how do you go about like deciding who's going to be there? Do you interact with everybody who's there?
So how that works is, for anybody that's out there that is in a position where they need or looking for or want a men's recovery house in Wilmington, Delaware, you can call this number and it will direct you to one of two people, and they'll do like an assessment with you to see if you meet the criteria that would allow you to come to the house. And that number is 302-433-6256. That's for the recovery houses.
So you have like managers there to intake. So when the guys get there, do they get to meet you? Do you go there and talk to them?
Yeah, I'm going there today.
Awesome.
After this, to do some gardening.
Very nice.
I love it, dude. It's like my favorite thing in the world to do, because that was my favorite time, probably in this lifetime, was living in my recovery house.
Okay.
When I had really nothing to do except stay sober.
Yeah.
Now, do you feel like the guys just guys, right? Men's house?
Yeah, just men.
All right. Do you feel like they have a like I guess a better chance of sobriety due to the fact that it's your house, and that there's like a face they can put to it, and not only that, but like let's face it, you're a celebrity in a sense. So like, there's almost like
I think there's a lot of pros to it.
Like they look up to you.
There's a lot of pros, but it's also a really good house. There's high accountability, lots of structure. We turn people away more than we accept, right? Because like, don't come if you're not serious about staying sober.
Right.
It's not a house that you can just get lost in.
That's fair.
Or put a head in a bed, get a free month's worth of rent.
Right.
It's not that at all. As a matter of fact, we've been open for almost 8 months, and we've only had, and this is nothing we've done, this is through the grace of God, we've only had one individual return back to drinking and drugging in
That's amazing.
8 months. And that was a 69-year-old alcoholic who legit told us that he missed the shed that he lived in before he came. You know, so that's like trying to tell a fucking 16-year-old kid he doesn't know how to live his life.
Right.
You know, you can't break the patterns at those ages, really young or really old.
So do you think that is a product of being, in a sense, institutionalized? Like how like somebody who was in jail their whole life wants to go back to jail?
Yeah. I think there's a lot of reasons why that is
certain
the way
learned
it was.
certain learned behaviors just seem so ingrained.
Yeah, and whether it was childhood, traumatic experiences, it could have been a veteran PTSD, could have been genetically predisposed. You know what I mean? It's too much for me to diagnose here.
Right.
And it may not always be their own fault either. It's just, you know, sometimes it gets so deep.
And at 69 years old after doing that for so fucking long, you know. But I don't know.
So I mean, and everybody's their own case.
That's
too.
it. It's not a black and white one size.
Yeah.
Maybe he's a candidate. Fuck, I shouldn't say this, but maybe he's the kind of candidate that you fucking lock to the radiator in the basement.
Yeah, exactly.
Not that I believe that should be done. But
exactly. We haven't tested this method yet, but if we have any volunteers, the Hollow Chord Podcast, Brandon Novak.
After this podcast, people are just gonna be chaining up their loved ones on fucking radiators. It's gonna be a whole bunch
I
of
didn't
news
recommend
stories.
to do that.
No, we do not support that idea. But hey, I mean, sometimes when things get crazy, you got to resort to crazy solutions. You got to do what seems necessary in the moment to.
Desperate times calling for desperate measures.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So does your success rate? Is that the same success rate as a lot of other houses? Is it in that wheelhouse, or is it?
I don't pay attention to other people's shit.
Okay.
I don't.
That's cool, man. You just do your own thing.
Yeah. And that's why I opened it in Wilmington, Delaware, right? Because I could have did it in the area Levittown where I got sober in, but it's oversaturated with houses.
Right.
And it's a bunch of like
It's
owners
not where
of
it's
other
needed.
programs, and it's like pissing matches between those. And I don't want to be fucked with. Like I don't want to. I don't want to like.
It's not about the competition. It's about the mission.
Yeah, and there's a need, there's a demand for it, and people don't question me and aren't like over intrusive on what I'm doing because there's like 10 other houses that that want to open.
Right.
I try to stay out of all that bullshit.
That's the politics of it. The same way
I
there's
hate
politics to
fucking
everything.
politics, man. I mean, it's the necessary evil. I get it. But
Yeah. I'm the same way, dude. I can't stand it. I mean, there's so much unnecessary bullshit infused into everything anymore. But again, like you said, necessary evil. So
do you have like a 5-year, 10-year plan?
Nope.
Or is you just
Day
flying
by
by the
day.
seat of your pants?
Yeah. I mean, because anything could change.
Right.
Literally.
yeah, like we were just saying, you could get a phone call on the way out of here, and then all of a sudden you're expanding to another neighborhood.
Yeah, absolutely. 1,000,000,000%. My 5 to 10 year plan for certain is just to God willing stay sober and continue to increase my relationship with my higher power. And with those two things in check, there is nothing that I can't do. And I've learned that from my own experience to ending up here at this table, right? Where I came from prior to getting sober. And some might look at it as, oh, you had this amazing, and I had some of the best times of my life getting loaded until they weren't. And that party ended. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And when I walked in with literally the clothes on my back to where I'm at now, it tells me that I can do anything.
So Vinny was mentioning like a documentary that he's doing with Franz.
Yeah, is there like you've been filming, I believe, a documentary with Franz?
Yeah, with
currently?
Vice. I believe it was. I was reading.
Yeah, it's a documentary that will be coming out about my life, and it's been in the makings for 22 years. Unbeknownst to us, we've been filming it for 22 years.
That's crazy. And Franz keeps all that footage.
Other people had it. It's changed hands a few times. The project's kind of lost momentum, gained momentum, because my story just keeps changing fucking exponentially and going in these different directions, and the endings kind of become bigger than life itself in a really short period of time. And so, yeah. But yes, now Franz has the footage. We're going next week. We have like 8 more pickup interviews to do, and we're going to interview the guy James Frey, who wrote the book A Million Little Pieces that inspired me to write my book. You may have heard of him. He ended up on Oprah's book club. Yep. They said his book was a lie. He fabricated parts of his story, and then he had to go back on Oprah's book club after she had him on, praised him, fucking how amazing it is. We're going to interview him next week.
Nice. Okay. That's awesome.
He's sober too.
Okay.
Shout out to James Frey.
That's a book we should pick up and read. Yeah, for sure.
It inspired Dream Seller for sure.
Okay. Yeah, it's definitely worth the read then. I mean, I was blown away by Dream Seller, man. I really didn't expect. I mean, I started to read it because I knew you were going to be coming on, and I'm thinking. I mean, I've known you for years on and off throughout Jackass and CKY, and where the fuck is Santa, all that kind of stuff, like. And then I started to think, like, it's just a research thing. It's just a research thing. And then I realized as I'm turning the pages, I'm starting to care more and more. I'm starting to, like, it was always, like, quote unquote, Novak. Now it's like Brandon.
Sure.
You know what I mean? There's a person behind the antics.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? All that kind of stuff. So it's cool that you are able to draw inspiration from James Frey's book, and, like, me reading yours is going to make me read his now, just to see where you were coming from, what kind of mindset you had. You know what I mean? It's dude, you've got some crazy stories, and you've learned definitely some crazy lessons. And how grounded you are when you explain it, post chaos.
Sure,
is incredible, man. You really do a good job at explaining to people that, the downsides of all this, and not just that you could die from drugs and alcohol, but, like, no, you really could die from drugs and alcohol. And not only that, it's going to be a hell of a ride down.
Yeah, it's worded very well, too, because I felt like I was there, like, with you the whole time.
Yeah, that's the point.
Kind of just, like, not even just watching, like, a fly on the wall kind of type deal. Just
he read your book in 2 days.
Yeah.
And I hear that a lot.
He was texting me the whole time, like, "Oh my god, you got to read this fucking book."
I sent Bill messages like, "Holy fuck!" like every hour.
Yeah,
Holy
pretty
fuck.
much. Yeah.
It's like, fuck off, for Christ's sake. Leave me alone.
So yeah, do we have anything else?
No, I'm pretty much good. Do you have anything else going on?
Brandon, go ahead, plug
Nah,
whatever
I'm
you
good,
want.
man. If so, I gave you the recovery house number, and if anyone's out there struggling with addiction or alcoholism or mental health or both in the same, you can reach me and my team directly at 610-635-9092. Or if you want to see what I'm up to, just go to my website, www.brandonnovak.com, all one word.
Awesome.
And that's it.
Awesome. Can't wait for that skate part to drop, man. Super excited to see that.
Stoked, dude.
Yeah, I've been watching your skate stuff on Instagram, like just the little clips you post. Yeah, it's a lot of cool shit.
Thanks, man.
Dude, the clip you out there skating the bowls in the suit, loved it.
Yeah,
I loved it. I thought that was so awesome.
Yeah, dude. That was like 3 years ago. Should do that again, actually.
So we do this segment called Fuckery of the Day. I'm sure you have plenty of things that you would consider fuckery, plenty of stories. If you would like to join us and tell us a story that would be fuckery that nobody's ever heard before.
Well, just like a story.
Just anything.
I've told all my stories so many times.
Or anything you've seen that, like, maybe you didn't even have anything to do with. Just
could have been something fucked up you seen last week or whatever.
Yeah, any kind of nonsense bullshit thing that's like, just like, that was ridiculous kind of moment.
It's weird. It's been a long time since I've put myself in a position to see, like, ridiculous shit.
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of a different thing asking you. I mean,
yeah, back in the day, we could have did a whole hour on those stories.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to even think of I don't really think about stuff
Like
like
anything
that.
that made like a Viva La Bam or didn't make the Viva La Bam show that was like so fucked that like
Yeah,
it
we
was
could
maybe
even
too
go with
much
that.
to make it.
Yeah, but I'm actually releasing all those on my Instagram now. Like we did the last one with Ryan Dunn last week, and we have a series coming out with all behind the scenes Viva La Bams, Jackass, CKY stuff. That we have so much footage that you could actually make a CKY5 out of it.
Oh my god!
So you're going to start seeing.
Funny,
these-
I saw the Ryan Dunn one where he's
Yeah.
putting the dumpster.
You're gonna
I
start
remember
seeing-
seeing that on Jackass though.
You're going to start seeing those.
Right? Wasn't there a segment that they did do that on Jackass? That made
I
it
never
to air?
saw it. Franz told me
Okay.
that it was never seen. Maybe
Because
it was. I don't know.
Yeah, I remember.
Maybe we watched a behind the scenes thing and saw it there. I don't.
Right.
We
I just
did- we
remember the
spent so
blood
many-
in the plastic and being like, "That's."
They might have
gnarly.
used that for a different skit. Even that might have been a different prank.
Right.
Maybe that
Well,
was
they were never
where that
allowed
came
to
from.
use it for MTV.
Okay.
Jackass. They said it was too vile, too repeatable. Is what
Yeah.
their terms were. They didn't want kids repeating that.
Yeah, I mean, you did cause a fucking uproar. That's for sure.
Yeah. So yeah, just tune in and you'll
Yeah.
see stories like that.
So Brandon's fuckery will be on his Instagram.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Over
Business
and
toy.
over and
Go
over.
to my fucking shit and watch it. Not giving it away for free.
Oh, that's great, dude.
So,
Cool, man.
Yeah, we'll
I
call
gotta
it.
piss really bad.
I'll
Oh, yeah,
probably.
dude, let's.
Thanks again, dude.
Thanks
we
for having
really
me, guys.
appreciate
I
it. Man.
appreciate it.
Yeah, we
This was
appreciate
fun,
your time.
man.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Anytime,
having
man.
me.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
All right, that's it for us, guys. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook at the Holocore Podcast, Instagram at the Holocore Podcast, Twitter at Fuckery of the Day. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Also, we're available wherever podcasts can be found: Spotify, iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. Look us up, dude. Tell your mom. Tell your mom's mom. Tell your aunt, uncle, cousin, girlfriend, girlfriend's dad.
Everyone.
All of them.
You
Tell
know,
them all at the same time.
force your dog to listen to it. Know what I'm saying? We out.